Have you ever looked into the night sky and wondered about all the stars you cannot see? All the galaxies that exist beyond the reach of your vision? There's something profoundly humbling about contemplating the vastness of the cosmos. But perhaps even more humbling is contemplating the vastness within you, the parts of yourself that remain unseen, unacknowledged, yet vibrating with potential and presence. Perhaps you've felt it sometimes, that sense that there's more to you than what you've allowed yourself to become, more to your existence than the narrow corridor of experiences you've permitted yourself to walk through, more to your potential than what your conscious mind has deemed acceptable or possible. In those quiet moments when you sit with yourself, truly sit with yourself, there comes a whisper from someplace deep, a voice that speaks of other possibilities, other expressions, other versions of who you could be if only you dared to look beyond the borders of your current identity. That whisper isn't imagination. It's a glimpse into what quantum physics might call your anti-universe, the mirror reflection of all you've chosen not to be in order to become who you are today. It's the collection of roads not taken, emotions not felt, truths not spoken, powers not claimed, all still vibrating in the quantum field of your own consciousness. We live in a reality defined as much by what we exclude as by what we include. Every choice you make collapses one possibility into form, while relegating countless others to the shadows of what could have been. But here's the profound truth that few spiritual seekers fully grasp. Those unchosen possibilities don't disappear. They don't cease to exist simply because you turned away from them. They continue to vibrate in your field, forming what we might call your personal anti-universe, the inverse of everything you've consciously chosen to be. And this hidden realm of the self exerts a powerful gravitational pull on your manifest reality, often in ways you never consciously perceive. Theoretical physics has speculated for decades about the existence of an anti-universe, a parallel reality that would be like an inverted mirror of our own. In it, time would run backward, matter would be antimatter, and the known laws of physics would have opposite behavior. This concept fascinates scientists and philosophers, not just as cosmological curiosity, but as a possibility that challenges our fundamental understanding of reality. The anti-universe represents a perfect counterpoint to everything we know, an inverted reflection of the cosmos we inhabit. But what if this is more than cosmological speculation? What if the anti-universe is actually a profound symbol of your own inverted consciousness, a metaphor for the parts of you that exist in potentiality, but that have never been allowed to manifest in the physical plane of your experience? This perspective transforms an abstract physics concept into a powerful tool for self-knowledge, an invitation to explore the hidden dimensions of your own being. Imagine that for every choice you made, there exists a version of you that chose the opposite, not as fantasy, but as a vibrational reality that continues pulsing in the quantum field of possibilities. For every time you chose safety over adventure, silence over expression, conformity over authenticity, there exists a version of you that took the alternative path. For every emotion you repressed, there exists a field where it expanded. Your unexpressed anger, your contained sadness, your moderated joy so as not to disturb others, all continue vibrating somewhere in your consciousness, creating energetic waves that silently influence your manifest reality. For every part of yourself that you hid to adapt, there exists an entire universe vibrating that denied truth. Your undeveloped gifts, desires considered inappropriate, truths judged as dangerous. All this forms a parallel vibrational field that pulses in contrast to the identity you consciously sustain. In this sense, the anti-universe isn't out there, in some distant dimension beyond the reach of our telescopes. It's within you, functioning as a vibrational mirror of what hasn't been integrated. It's the repository of everything you've rejected, denied, or repressed in your journey of becoming who you are today. It's the energetic storehouse of unmanifested potentials, unpermitted expressions, undeclared truths. And this inner parallel reality isn't inert or passive. It's dynamically active, constantly influencing the quantum field that collapses as your daily experience. And more, perhaps the real you isn't just the one living here, in linear time, trying to control matter. Perhaps the truer you is the one already existing in the inverse field, where there's no time, no limitation, no persona. This aspect of your being transcends personality constructions, social masks, temporary identities. It exists in a state of completeness that knows no fragmentation, in a field of infinite possibilities not restricted by the limiting choices of your earthly journey. This you lives in the quantum field of uncollapsed possibilities. And your mission here isn't to create from scratch, as if you were generating reality from a vacuum. It's to reunify what was separated by fragmented consciousness. It's to reconnect the dispersed aspects of your being into a coherent totality, a vibrational unity where nothing needs to be excluded, repressed, or denied. When you recognize the existence of this mirror you, something extraordinary begins to happen. You begin to access memories, desires, pains, and gifts that were off your radar. Aspects of your being that were invisible to your ordinary consciousness begin to emerge not as strange invaders but as lost parts finally finding their way back home. And your reality begins to change not because you created something new, but because you integrated something that was always yours but was vibrating at another frequency. This change doesn't come from acquisition, but from reunification. Not from conquest, but from recognition. Not from the effort to manifest what's missing, but from the courage to welcome what's always been present, just awaiting your recognition. Many believe they manifest their reality based on what they consciously think, but this is just the surface of creation. What really forms your reality, what collapses probabilities in the quantum field, isn't what you desire, it's what you silently emanate, including, and especially, what you don't want to see. It's the totality of your vibrational signature, including, and perhaps especially, the frequencies you've rejected, repressed, or denied. This is the symbolic role of the anti-universe in your manifestation journey. It represents all frequencies, emotions, and truths you reject, but that continue vibrating somewhere in the field. It's the energetic repository of everything you decided not to be, not to feel, not to express, but which, paradoxically, continues exerting a powerful influence on the reality you experience, not as punishment, not as karma, but as a reflection of the fundamental law of the quantum field, that it responds to the totality of your vibration, not just the parts you consciously choose to show. You can affirm love every day. You can declare you're open to deep and meaningful relationships, can visualize the ideal partner with all the details your conscious mind considers important. But if you still reject your own vulnerability, if you still fear true intimacy, if you still carry unprocessed memories of abandonment or betrayal, the field will mirror relationships where love is conditional, not because you're doing something wrong, not because you don't deserve the love you desire, but because the quantum field is responding to the totality of your frequency, including the parts you've been trying to keep in the shadow. You can visualize prosperity. You can perform abundance rituals, can affirm your connection to universal plenty, can visualize the financial goals you wish to achieve. But if your body vibrates fear of being rejected for having success, if you carry unconscious guilt for receiving more than others, if there's a deep belief that money and spirituality are opposites, reality will manifest subtle blocks, not as punishment, but as a reflection of your unrecognized frequency. The field doesn't judge, it simply mirrors. It returns to you in physical form, the totality of what you vibrate, including what vibrates in the dark recesses of your personal anti-universe. This invisible side of creation is governed by a simple yet profound law. Everything you avoid inside, the field projects outside. What you refuse to face in the mirror of your own consciousness will eventually find its way to you through external circumstances, not as punishment, but as an invitation to integration, not as obstacle, but as portal to expanded consciousness. The universe isn't working against you when it manifests challenges. It's paradoxically working in your favor, showing in physical reality what you couldn't or wouldn't see within yourself. And the more you try to control reality without touching this hidden content, the more it escapes. The more you try to force manifestations through just your conscious will, ignoring the vast territory of your inner anti-universe, the more frustration you find. Because reality is an energetic mirror reflecting not only what you show, but also what you hide. It responds not only to your deliberate declarations, but also to your eloquent silences, not only to what you consciously choose, but also to what you unconsciously avoid. The anti-universe, in this sense, is your vibrational shadow space, not as something bad, but as something necessary for your completeness, not as a mistake or failure, but as an essential part of your totality. Jung called this shadow, not as something to be eliminated, but as something to be integrated for the realization of the fullness of being. In the context of quantum manifestation, this shadow isn't just psychological, it's vibrational. It emits a frequency that the field recognizes and responds to, as clearly as it responds to your conscious intentions. Recognizing this is liberating, because you stop fighting with the world and start dialoguing with parts of you that still vibrate outside the light. You stop seeing challenges as obstacles to be overcome or eliminated, and begin to recognize them as messengers bringing valuable information about what still needs to be integrated in your field. You stop asking, "Why does this keep happening to me?" and start investigating, "What is this showing me about what I still reject in myself?" It's a profound perspective shift that transforms not only how you approach manifestation, but how you understand the very purpose of your earthly journey. There's a pattern repeating in many spiritual seekers' journeys, a subtle trap keeping so many of us stuck in cycles of incomplete or unsatisfactory manifestation. Most people, when seeking change, enter a vibrational state of denial. They sincerely desire to transform their circumstances, but do so from a posture of rejecting what already exists. They want to manifest abundance, but reject the scarcity still vibrating in the body. They deeply desire prosperity, visualize it, affirm it, but simultaneously repel the experience of limitation still resonating in their cells, memories, energy field. They want to attract a new love, but bury the pain of abandonment that was never welcomed. They long for deep connection, true partnership, but push into the shadows the relational wounds still pulsing in the heart, the intimacy fears still contracting the chest, the betrayal memories still tensing the nervous system. They want to live in peace, but run from the emptiness they feel when silencing. They seek serenity, inner tranquility, but avoid at all costs the discomfort of silence, the confrontation with the restlessness that emerges when they stop distracting themselves, the encounter with the existential void that emerges when perpetual movement ceases. This creates a vibrational paradox, an energetic contradiction that fragments manifesting power. The more you try to attract what you desire, the more you intensify the field of what you don't want to feel. Because the very act of rejection energizes what is rejected. Resistance to a state strengthens its presence in your field. What you fight, you feed. What you deny, you amplify. Not in conscious visibility, but in vibratory potency. It's like trying to build a new house on land where there are still ruins. The structure might look new, but underneath, the old vibrations continue to sustain invisible cracks. You can raise the walls of the new reality you wish to experience, decorate it with the furniture of your positive visualizations, paint it with the vibrant colors of your affirmations. But if the energetic terrain where all this sits is still filled with the ruins of what you reject, the construction will be unstable. Cracks will appear. The manifestation will be incomplete or temporary. The transformation won't be sustainable. This is the symbolic function of the anti-universe within you. It's the place where everything you avoid still vibrates, where denied energies continue pulsing, where repressed emotions keep emitting their frequency, where unrecognized truths persist, exerting their silent influence. It holds the unprocessed emotional files, the desires you judged wrong, the versions of yourself denied to fit in. It's the repository of everything excluded from your conscious identity, but that continues vibrating as an integral part of your total energy field. And here's the central point, the fundamental truth transforming all understanding about conscious manifestation. What you reject in yourself, the field manifests as challenge. What you refuse to face within, the universe presents without. Not as punishment, but as invitation to integration. Not as obstacle, but as portal to completeness. Not as barrier, but as bridge to more expanded consciousness and more authentic manifestation. Therefore, reality doesn't transform through the force of intention, but through the courage to integrate what vibrates behind it. Not through the intensity of your conscious desire, but through your willingness to embrace the totality of your field, including what you've kept in the shadows. Not through the power of your will, but through the breadth of your acceptance. Not through the perfection of your manifestation technique, but through the integrity of your presence with all that is. This isn't about sinking into shadow or romanticizing pain. This isn't an invitation to identify with suffering, to glorify wounds, to remain stagnant in negative experiences, but to stop fighting against parts of you still asking for light, to cease the internal war against aspects of your being that just await recognition and integration, to end resistance to that which, paradoxically, only remains present because it continues being rejected. True manifestation isn't the exclusion of what's negative, it's the transmutation of the reverse into coherent vibrational force. It's not eliminating shadow, but it's conscious incorporation into the totality of your being, transforming what was fragmentation into integrity, what was division into coherence, what was conflict into harmony. It's the energetic alchemy occurring when nothing is excluded, when everything is recognized as a legitimate part of your field, when each frequency finds its appropriate place in the symphony of your expression. It's only when you look at what you denied that the field can finally release what was always yours, but was trapped in the reflection of what you refused to feel. It's only when you have the courage to face your personal anti-universe, to recognize and welcome what you've kept in the shadows, that your manifestation can finally flow without the blocks created by your own resistance. Not because you conquered something new, but because you finally allowed what's always been present to be integrated into the totality of your field. In the morning silence, when the world hasn't yet imposed its demands and expectations, there's a precious opportunity for a different meeting with yourself. If there's a hidden universe within you, the vibrational anti-universe, where everything rejected continues active, the only way to change reality with truth is to integrate this field. It's no longer a war against what you don't want. It's a recognition dance with what you've avoided. It's not a technique to eliminate unwanted parts, but a process to re-establish relationship with the totality of your being. This doesn't require supernatural effort. It doesn't require extraordinary psychic abilities or advanced esoteric knowledge. It requires willingness to look, feel, and welcome with presence. It requires only the courage of truth, the will to meet yourself sincerely, to witness without judgment, to recognize without rejection. Here's a 3-step reintegration practice that can transform your relationship with your own energetic shadow. The first step is to identify the cyclical patterns of your reality. Observe your life with compassionate honesty, like someone watching a movie of which you're not judge, just witness. What experiences seem to repeat despite your efforts to change them? Where do you find the same obstacles despite different scenarios? Relationships ending the same way with identical emotions, even when partners are different. Professional situations where the feeling of not being valued always emerges, even in completely new environments. Circumstances where you always feel invisible, rejected, controlled. These patterns aren't bad luck. They aren't meaningless coincidences, nor punishments from a capricious universe. They're vibrational signals of what's active in your mirror field. They're the clues your anti-universe is sending, indicating where there's still fragmentation awaiting integration, where there are still unrecognized aspects asking for attention. The second step is to name the rejected aspect. For each identified pattern, ask yourself sincerely, unhurriedly, allowing the answer to emerge not from the rational mind, but from the body's intuitive intelligence. What part of myself am I avoiding feeling or accepting? What in me still hasn't found permission to exist in the light of consciousness? Perhaps it's your anger, that powerful energy you learned to repress for fear of hurting others or losing love. Perhaps it's your fragility, that vulnerability you hid behind walls of strength, convinced you'd be rejected if you showed it. Perhaps it's your desire to be seen, that natural need for recognition you judged as selfish or inappropriate. Perhaps it's your silenced ambition, that expansion impulse you pruned for fear of abandoning those you love or transcending your origins. By naming, you remove the shadow's power. You transform the unknown into dialogue. What was once an amorphous energy, an indefinite malaise, a nameless anxiety, now has contour, identity, voice, and therefore can finally be heard, recognized, and integrated. The third step is to visualize and converse with your inverse self. This is the most transformative moment of the practice, where the abstract becomes experiential, where the conceptual becomes relational. Close your eyes and imagine this part of you as a being from the mirror universe, not as an enemy, invader, or threat, but as a legitimate aspect of your being simply banished to the shadows, to the anti-universe of your consciousness. He is you, but in the frequency you hid. It's you vibrating what wasn't permitted to vibrate in your conscious identity. Converse with him as you would with a long unseen old friend. Ask what he wants to show you, what wisdom he holds, what gifts he brings. Thank him for his presence not as formality, but as genuine recognition that his existence has purpose, value, meaning in the totality of your being. And say, truthfully, without pretension, with the sincerity of one finally abandoning the fight, I see you, I accept you, I choose to integrate you, not fight against you. This simple practice, performed with genuine presence, unhurriedly, without immediate result expectation, without perfection anxiety, reconnects fragments of your energetic identity, long separated by the illusion of duality. It's a vibrational bridge between the universe and anti-universe of your consciousness, a portal between what you allowed yourself to be and what you kept hidden in the shadows. And the more you reintegrate, the less the field needs to project. The more you welcome internally, the less the universe needs to reflect externally as challenge or obstacle. The more you expand to include what you previously rejected, the more your manifest reality expands to reflect this new vibrational coherence. Because what's accepted within no longer needs to shout from outside. What's recognized in the consciousness mirror no longer needs to manifest in the reality mirror. What's embraced in the totality of your vibrational field no longer needs to call your attention through challenging external circumstances, not because you conquered something, but because you allowed yourself to be something you always were, just awaiting your recognition. In ancient esoteric traditions, mirrors were considered magical portals, surfaces that not only reflect the visible, but also reveal the invisible. In the quietude of this understanding, imagine a mirror with two faces. Not an ordinary mirror showing only what's before it, but a mystical, multi-dimensional mirror. On one side, it shows what you desire, declare, visualize. It reflects your conscious dreams, positive affirmations, declared intentions, visualized goals. On the other, it reflects everything you hide, avoid, bury. It shows your unadmitted fears, unprocessed pains, repressed desires, silenced truths. Now imagine that the reality you live is shaped by both sides simultaneously, that each experience, circumstance, relationship, opportunity, or challenge is formed not only by what you consciously emanate, but also by what you unconsciously vibrate in the shadows of your being. This is how the universe works. It doesn't operate by preferences or judgments. It doesn't choose to respond only to your positive vibrations while ignoring the negative. It isn't limited to what you consciously desire. It also responds to what you unconsciously vibrate, even if you don't see it, even if you don't want it. The quantum field, in its perfect neutrality, in its impeccable responsiveness, reflects the totality of your vibrational signature, the complete spectrum of your frequency, including what you proudly display and what you carefully hide. You can think about abundance, visualize wealth, declare prosperity as your essential truth. But if you hide your guilt for receiving, if you still carry the unexamined belief that having more means others will have less, if you still vibrate the ancestral fear that abundance will make you a target of envy or resentment, the vibrational mirror will reveal scarcity, not as punishment for your negative thoughts, but as faithful reflection of the totality of your field, including what you consciously affirm and what you unconsciously deny. You can desire love, visualize the ideal partner, affirm you're ready for a deep and meaningful relationship. But if your unhealed pain still echoes in your frequency, if the abandonment from past relationships still resonates in your nervous system, if the fear of intimacy still contracts your heart when approaching true vulnerability, the mirror will show you relationships mirroring that pain. Not because you're doing something wrong, not because you don't deserve the love you seek, but because the field responds to the totality of your vibration, including what you show and what you hide, what you affirm and what you deny. That's the power of the double mirror. It doesn't punish you. It shows you. It doesn't judge. It reflects. It doesn't manipulate. It mirrors. Not as punishment, but as healing. Not as barrier, but as portal. Not as obstacle in your path, but as the path itself. The path to integration, coherence, manifestation, born not from fragmentation, but from totality. Quantum physics already reminds us, through the fundamental experiments establishing its foundations, you collapse what you observe with emotion. The observer's consciousness influences the observed's behavior. Your focused attention, carrying emotional charge, collapses potentialities into specific realities, but you also collapse what you avoid with fear. What you flee from, what you fear facing, what you refuse to witness also takes form, also acquires substance, also manifests, not because you consciously chose it, but because you energetically fed it through the very force of your resistance. Therefore, awakening isn't in desiring more intensely. It isn't in perfecting your visualizations, refining your affirmations, elaborating more complex manifestation rituals. It's in seeing with courage what you never wanted to see. It's in recognizing what you've kept in the shadows, welcoming what you've rejected, integrating what you've fragmented. It's in expanding your consciousness not just to contain more light, but to embrace darkness too, not as something to be eliminated, but as an essential part of the totality of your being. And in doing this, you become a whole being, not fragmented between what you accept and reject, show and hide, affirm and deny. Not just light, radiant but incomplete. Not just shadow, deep but isolated, but a coherent field where everything is part, and everything vibrates in the same direction, where there's no internal war, no division, no aspects of your being fighting each other, where your energy is no longer dispersed between what you try to manifest and what you try to avoid, but unified in a single coherent, powerful, authentic frequency. In this state, the universe no longer needs to confront you. It no longer needs to bring to your consciousness through external challenges what you refuse to see internally. It begins, finally, to respond, not as reward for your positive thinking, not as prize for your high vibration, not as result of the perfection of your manifestation technique, but as natural reflection of the coherence of your field, the integrity of your being, the totality of your presence, where nothing is excluded, denied, rejected, where each aspect of your being, each frequency of your consciousness, each dimension of your existence finds its legitimate place in the unified symphony of your expression. As the sun sets on the horizon of this journey we've shared, perhaps you're feeling something subtle changing within you, an opening, an expansion, a recognition that perhaps the transformation you've been seeking isn't in accumulating more techniques, methods, formulas to force reality to meet your desires. Perhaps it's in something much simpler and simultaneously much deeper, in the courage to recognize, welcome, and integrate the totality of your being, including what you've kept in the shadows of your personal anti-universe. This understanding fundamentally transforms the spiritual journey. You cease being someone desperately trying to create a better reality through effort, control, and energetic manipulation. You become someone committed to the integration of your inner field, to the reunification of what was fragmented, to the welcoming of what was rejected. You stop pursuing external manifestations as validation of your worth or proof of your spiritual power, and begin exploring the rich territory of your personal anti-universe, discovering that perhaps the greatest treasure isn't what you can obtain from the world, but what you can integrate within yourself. When you understand that your current reality is the reflection of your rejected frequency, you stop fighting against circumstances as if they were enemies, and begin seeing them as messengers bringing precise information about what still awaits integration in your field. You abandon the war against what is, and enter into dialogue with what's being shown. Not to passively resign, not to accept limitations as definitive, but to recognize the wisdom of what's manifesting, the precision with which the universe is reflecting exactly what needs to be seen, felt, embraced, so you can move forward. By recognizing the vibrational error of trying to change reality without integrating its reverse, you stop dispersing your energy in superficial manifestation techniques that ignore the vast territory of your shadow. You understand that it's not the perfection of your visualization or the intensity of your affirmation that determines what manifests, but the coherence of your total field, including what you consciously sustain and what you unconsciously reject. This understanding frees you from the exhaustion of perpetual effort, the frustration of incomplete results, the confusion when manifestations don't correspond to your declared intentions. The vibrational reintegration technique offers a practical, accessible path to transform this understanding into lived experience, not as another magic formula to manipulate reality, but as a process of self-knowledge, self-acceptance, and self-integration. You learn to identify the cyclical patterns revealing what's active in your anti-universe. to name the rejected aspects awaiting recognition, to dialogue directly with your inverse self, transforming what was anonymous shadow into recognized ally, what was dispersed energy into coherent force. And finally, the double mirror metaphor offers a new way to understand how the universe responds to your presence, not just to what you consciously project, but to the totality of your field, not just to what you affirm, visualize, and declare, but also to what you deny, avoid, and hide. This understanding fundamentally changes your relationship with manifestation, from a fragmented approach trying to maximize the positive while suppressing the negative, to an integrative approach recognizing totality as the path to true conscious creation. As we close this moment together, I'd like to leave you with a question to take to the silence of your heart, a seed to germinate in the fertile soil of your expanded consciousness. What in your personal anti-universe is waiting for your recognition today? What aspect of your being has remained in the shadows, vibrating as rejected frequency, manifesting as external challenge, patiently waiting for you to see it not as enemy, but as legitimate part of your totality? Don't answer hastily. Don't seek the right or spiritual answer. Allow truth to emerge naturally, like water from a deep spring rising to the surface in its own perfect time. And when that truth reveals itself, receive it not with judgment, resistance, or the old rejection that kept it fragmented, but with the welcome of one who finally recognizes a lost part of themselves, a valuable aspect of their being that just awaited recognition to return to the light of integrated consciousness. This is the endless journey of true transformation, not the struggle to manifest what you think is missing, but the recognition that nothing is really missing, just awaiting reintegration. Not the effort to create from scratch, but the wisdom to reunify what was fragmented. Not the quest to become something different from what you are, but the courage to be everything you've always been, including what you kept hidden in the anti-universe of your consciousness. And when you embrace this journey, when you have the courage to turn the mirror and look at what you've avoided seeing, when you choose to dialogue with your mirror universe instead of continuing to deny its existence, something extraordinary begins to happen. The field no longer needs to reflect as external challenge what you deny internally. Reality no longer needs to manifest as obstacle what you reject in yourself. The universe no longer needs to confront you with what you refuse to see. It begins finally to respond to the integrated totality of your being, not as reward, not as prize, but as natural reflection of the vibrational coherence you finally allowed to establish itself. This is the promise of the anti-universe, not as threat, but as portal. Not as opposition, but as complement. Not as something to be feared or avoided, but as the path to integrity, authentic manifestation, full expression of who you truly are, in all your glorious, complex, and multidimensional totality.